Hey you guys, I'm Steven.
I'm Giselle.
And we are also known as the Lover's Passport. And welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Adventures. Today we have another very exciting creator on. She leads tons of groups. She's from Colorado. Her name is Julia Takes a Hike. We're really excited to chat with her about everything outdoors, adventure, travel, Instagram, group hiking. So with that, welcome to the show, Julia.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, we're stoked that I feel like this is our first time like actually meeting you face to face. So it's so cool. I feel like that's like my favorite part about the podcast is a lot of these people that we've commented on for years or followed and seen. And then we finally are like, you know what? We're just going to do a podcast. And then we get to talk. It's so much fun.
Yeah, same. I found you guys pretty early on when I started my account. And you were one of the wow, this travel couple is doing all this cool stuff. And then when we finally started engaging with each other's stuff, that was cool. And then when you reached out for the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, that's a super cool opportunity because I already listened to your other guys' episodes and find those really interesting. So
that's so fun.
I hope people find this one interesting too.
I feel like we haven't had anyone that actually listens to the podcast on.
We always send them episodes here and there.
Do they listen? I have no idea.
Yeah. So if you're listening, you never know. Maybe you'll be on the podcast.
Yeah, I actually remember listening to your guys' podcast, the 2023 one of the how much we made that year. And I was blown away by that one. I was like, how is it possible that you can actually make this amount of money on social media? And then this past year, I made what I thought would be unimaginable, for myself on social media. And I was like, wait, this is actually a real thing that you can do. So your podcast, that episode was one of the ones that actually made me realize that there is so much potential out there for creators. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Cool.
That's
and
incredible.
I listened to your 2024 one also.
Yeah.
Really
well,
cool.
okay.
Whoa.
Jumping into that then. So you obviously you're doing content creation. I say it looks like you're basically doing it full time, but you also have another job. How does that play into your content creator journey, balancing it with another job? Because I know when we first started, we were doing it as a side hustle for a year and a half before I even knew that I was going to quit my job. And then once I did, that totally changed the game for me. But I think a lot of people don't think that it's possible to do while you're also having 9 to 5 or working a slightly different schedule, but I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear how you balance that.
Yeah, so I've been doing social media for 2.5 years now, so still pretty new. And I work part-time at a nonprofit. So when I started, I was doing the full-time nonprofit job Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 and social media. And now it feels like I'm a full-time content creator with my nonprofit being the part-time side job now. So it's kind of flipped. But I went part-time last summer because just the opportunities for social media that I was getting were kind of outweighing the time that I could take off of work for the nonprofit. So I went part-time Tuesday through Thursday. That's my schedule now. And then social media is pretty much anything outside of that. And it's nice because I have a lot of flexibility with taking time off if I need to. I don't have a set number of vacation days, so I can take time off whenever something comes up. I can swap my work days if I need to, if there's an opportunity on a weekend or a weekday. So yeah, the flexibility for all of that stuff has been super nice. And I still enjoy the job that I do as my day job. But I'd say that the social media stuff and the outdoor content creation is really the fun part of I can't believe this is a job kind of thing.
That I feel like I was in very similar boat. I feel like G had the 40-hour work week and was cut cold turkey when it just got to the point too much. I was very similar to you since I owned my other small business with my mom and my best friend, I looked at him and I was like, okay, I'm not going to say no to going on this incredible trip. I'm making 3 months salary from you guys in a weekend. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to leave. I need to, and we cut down hours and it just finally got to the point where it was there was no possibility. There was 1 month I was only in the state 2 days and I was like, okay, sorry, I gotta switch. I'll come in for events, whatever it is. And then even now it's those events have turned into, I mainly do business consulting, help with them. So it's really cool to see that you're like you said, 2.5 years into it. We totally remember we were at the same exact point. So it makes us really excited for what is going to come up for you. And that would be my next question is like, how close are you to potentially doing it full time? Is there like a list that you're of things that you're like, okay, I need to mark these things off like G, and then once you finish those things off, then you're going to go full time? Or are you just super passionate about the nonprofit where you don't see yourself, you want to continue to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about it a lot, and right now I am not trying to like go full-time content creator, not because I don't want to, but I mean, I do enjoy my nonprofit job. I think the work that we do there is very like value focused and driven. So I still like the work that I do there in my team, and for that reason I don't really want to leave it. But it's also nice just having the stability of that income every month in addition to content creation, even though content creation like is my full-time salary pretty much. Like I could be full-time if I wanted to, but I think it's kind of nice having something that isn't related just to social media to work on, because sometimes like I kind of want a break from that, and it's nice not doing social media all the time.
Yeah, and you get coworkers.
Right now, I think I'll stick with my schedule.
You get coworkers, you get a steady paycheck, you get like so many more benefits too.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of people, like actually a lot of the people doing our course right now, a lot of them said they don't want to ever go full time with it because they love their current jobs. And I think it's just not talked about a lot. So it's cool to see that you're doing both just genuinely because you enjoy both.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I feel that just like G said, that we've had a few one-on-ones where they're like, I'm a doctor. I don't need to go full time with this. I just love posting. I would love to like make this travel adventure, like get some of my vacations paid for. I'm like, perfect. And then there's obviously like the other people who are like, I quit my job 2 weeks ago and I just started Instagram. And I'm just like, oh gosh, don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah, a little too soon, but...
So what advice would you give to someone then that's just starting out, wants to pursue doing this with a 9 to 5? Like, what was your journey growing your audience stuff? For us, it was obviously the weekend warrior stuff. Do you have a very similar history, or how did all that come to be?
Yeah, my social media journey kind of started when I moved to Colorado. So I'm from California, Bay Area, went to college in Minnesota, and then was like sent home during that pandemic, and then moved out to Colorado because my fiance's from here. So it kind of all started like the winter I moved here because I was doing all this stuff like in the state, like hiking and stuff. Things weren't really open yet. And I wanted a different platform to share stuff. So that's kind of like how Julia Takes a Hike was started, was like me just sharing like tips for winter hiking, stuff that I was learning for the first time because I'd never done that before, and like snowshoeing and hikes I was finding and weekend trips around the state that we were doing. So it kind of all came from that stuff, and it was a lot of like weekend warrior things. So when I moved here, I was working remotely, so we had more flexibility to travel around the state and stuff like that. And then I also had a 4-day work week, so then I had that Friday, Saturday, Sunday longer weekend to do stuff. So that definitely developed and like kind of grew the passion for, okay, where are we going to go next? Like planning the trip while you're still on the trip kind of thing.
Oh, love that.
So definitely started from that. So I think like, yeah, a similar background from you guys. Like I know you've done a lot of like road trips and stuff around California. And then, yeah, I was like, I want to put this all somewhere where a community is going to also understand and have the same passion for this stuff as I do. And then, yeah, that's kind of where it grew out of.
So were you always outdoorsy like before you moved to Colorado, or was that kind of like something later in life that came to you?
Yeah, I'd say I was always outdoorsy. My parents have always like taken my sister and I out on weekend trips in California. Like I have really good memories of Yosemite National Park, things like that. We were never really like the camping, backpacking family, but like we would do a lot of like day hikes along the coast, like Big Sur road trips, stuff like that, which was really nice. And then when I went to Minnesota, didn't really do a whole lot out there because it was a residential campus. I didn't have a car. And then when I moved back to California, started doing more coastal hikes when things were still shut down. Then when I moved out here, it was like, okay, I can get back to all of this stuff that I loved doing when I was in high school, because like now I have my own independence and freedom and it's all new to me, which was super exciting. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, I was outdoorsy, but not like super outdoorsy. I don't know. There's like, I guess there doesn't really have to be a a range for
Right.
that.
And I think it's cool. I've seen some of your posts on your page too, where you're like, what does outdoors even mean? Right. Like you don't need to go like hardcore budget backpack, like with all your not budget backpack, but backpack with all your hyper light, expensive REI gear on
You
like
didn't
a
grow up in the middle of the
100-mile trail.
mountains, like only hunting your food. Like what? You're not outdoorsy.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool because I think in the last couple of years, more and more people, especially females, have started sharing their experiences in the outdoors, and it's way less of like well, I did this, like, you know, competition of how outdoorsy you are.
Yeah.
And I think people sharing like yourself tips for other people to get started is super helpful. I mean, when we were first starting out, I was brand new to a lot of this stuff. I didn't know how to snowshoe, glissade, backpack, any of that kind of stuff. And so it's a cool thing to see so many creators using their platforms to help so many other people get inspired to go outside and do what you're doing, even if you have no experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like, so you started the Colorado Hiking Girls. Would you talk a little bit more about that? Is it, so you have a hiking group, anyone in Colorado can come, like what's usually like the experience levels, and how has that been like connecting in real life with people from your page?
Yeah, the Colorado Hiking Girls has been such a fun group. So I started this group kind of not with the purpose of starting it. So it was kind of like an accidental group. I posted on TikTok like a month after I made my Instagram, I think. Something random, like looking for other Colorado girls that love the outdoors, etc. Some stuff like that. So I moved here not knowing anyone aside from my fiance, so I didn't really have many friends of my own, and I wanted to find people that like to do the same stuff as me, like hiking, camping, national park trips, stuff like that. So I posted that, and to my surprise, it kind of blew up overnight with everyone commenting like, oh, I want to do this stuff, like where are we hiking, like what are we doing next? So out of that, I decided to host a group hike kind of in my area. Like 20 girls showed up. We had a great time. And then after the hike, they were asking me when the next hike was going to be planned. And I had no idea that there would be interest in a following hike. Like it did not occur to me. I thought it would be a one-off. So I figured, okay, I got to start a group for like all these people that were interested, like even the people that couldn't make it to this one, but had expressed interest in like, if you plan another, like I'll be there. So that's kind of how the Colorado Hiking Girls was started. It's an all-women group statewide. Most of the people are in the Front Range. So like Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, Northern Colorado, but it is statewide, so any woman in Colorado can join. Even people who are just passing through or visiting Colorado, you can like hop in the group and ask people if they want to go on a hike or a trip. And yeah, it's been super fun. I try to host hikes monthly, so it depends on my schedule, but I'll host either like group hikes or trail cleanups or events each month, and then people can just join from the group. I post them on my Instagram as well. And yeah, it's been super fun just meeting people in person, and, you know, people that like have followed me either from the start or recently, or have just seen something about the group from a friend can just show up and like meet other people on the trail. And it's a lot more chill than like meeting someone for coffee or like going to lunch with someone, because that's scary. And I did try doing that when I started in Colorado. Like I was on Bumble BFF, like meeting people that way. And that's a lot more intimidating than being like, hey, let's go on a hike.
Did you have success on Bumble BFF? I feel like
I was going to say, so G has the same, not the same problem. Maybe you should start a California Hiking Girls.
Maybe, I don't know.
When I've lived in like the same area, like I grew up 5 minutes from where we're recording the podcast right now. So I've always lived in the same exact area. G's moved around, and then when she went to college, all of her friends, I feel like
everyone's spread out,
live hours away. So we always hang out with all of my dude friends, and G's always like, all of you need girlfriends, or like go find some girls so that way I can have more friends.
Well,
and she tried.
I did. I like put myself out there. I would go, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Outdoorsy Gals. Like I joined that Facebook group. And so I went to an Earth Day cleanup down in Santa Monica, which is like not a short drive for me. It was like an hour 45 to get down there and like actually go. And I showed up and I was so excited. And then everyone rolled up with like other people and were not social at all. And I was like, damn, like that sucks. Like I was hoping to meet people.
I felt so bad. She got home and was just destroyed.
I was like, dang, I consider myself like a semi-social person. Like I'm an extroverted introvert, but if I'm going with the intention of wanting to socialize with people, I will. And so I got on Bumble BFF and I was like, oh, this is not it. I feel like all of my most recent female friends have literally all been through Instagram. So I think it's cool that you're hosting those kinds of things because, yeah, there's not many groups near us that kind of do that. So maybe I do need to start one, but we're gone all the time. So I feel like I'm not a reliable person to do that.
That was going to be my next question. So if you started the Colorado Hiking Girls, is this something that you are always there for? Is this something that like you just created a community? And if let's say G hopped in and said, hey, I'm in Colorado for the weekend. Does anyone want to go to hiking? You don't need to be involved in and people can go hiking by themselves. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's exactly that. So it's mainly a community for people to meet others that like the outdoors. I will host like, I guess, an official event once a month, but it's not just restricted to that. So most of the time people in the group are going on like coffee dates or dog walks or like there's a new brewery in Denver, let's go there. And they're kind of doing stuff consistently. So whoever's in the group, you can like find your subroom in there by location or activity and just figure out what's going on or ask if someone wants to do something. So that's mainly what it is. And then I'll try to host something where I'll bring in like a brand partner or get like a discounted brewery thing afterwards, something that like I'm going to be there for, but those are only like the once a month events.
That's super fun.
Very cool. Well, we will be in Colorado and next week. So maybe G will have
next week?
Next week.
I think 2 weeks. What's the date?
Yeah,
that's the problem about being your own boss. You're like, what day is it? I have no idea.
I know we got to play around. We're doing our first so we started doing these new events with our Creator Passport students. So we're planning like this big meetup, and we're going to be doing it this weekend actually. So we're super, super excited to go and host a little hike. But I think how many people are usually showing up for these things? I think we have 20 of our students showing up to go hang out at the beach, do a hike, create some content. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 20 people. Like I can't even imagine.
We did a Santa Barbara meetup last year, and I think we had like 40 people come. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That sounds super fun. Yeah. So it depends on like county trail size regulations.
Oh, that's something I did not even think of.
Yeah, the trail size regulations are 14 people. In like the Boulder area, it's 20. So different counties have different size limits. So that's kind of what dictates group sizes. But for other stuff, like for example, I'm hosting a women's whitewater rafting half-day trip, and that will be capped at 50 people. So like that's a lot bigger. So it kind of just depends on like what regulations there are. So it usually isn't that big, but it's kind of nice because that makes it easier for people to actually like connect and talk to each other.
Well, speaking of regulations, you are so on top of it about sharing like leave no trace and all the outdoor ethics on your platform. And I know in the last couple of years, a hot topic on social media has always been about gatekeeping and geotagging and all of that fun stuff, which I think we talked about a little early on in the podcast in like season 1, I think. But as we've slowly transitioned a little more away from only outdoor travel to like more just travel instead of outdoor, it's definitely less of a conversation that we deal with now, or less of an issue that we deal with now because we're doing a lot more like cities and stuff.
I saw someone post this on hot take. Are you team gatekeeping or team geotagging or gatekeeping locations? Hot take. And the thread was just ridiculous how long it was. I was like, oh man, I haven't thought about this topic
in so long. And it's been nice because like that used to be something that I would really stress about, especially as someone with influence. So do you have any advice for people listening that are either just starting out or that already have an audience on how to responsibly promote like outdoor recreation?
Yeah, that's a great topic. It's definitely something I think about pretty often, I feel like.
It's very relevant in this space.
I agree. Those get so heated from like either side. But I don't think there's like one right answer. I think you have to kind of find the middle ground for that. So I'd say like first off, like learn a lot about leave no trace and like what it actually means and the principles. I didn't even know the phrase leave no trace until like I came to Colorado. So like I had known about responsible recreation, but not literally the leave no trace principles until like social media. So I learned from some outdoor creator probably that I was like scrolling on my feed and learned from them. So like if that doesn't attest to the power of like you can spread a message online with your platform, like I don't know what does. So I think that's a good example of that. But yeah, I think learning and understanding those principles and like actually practicing them And like, it's super easy to walk past trash on a trail, but it's also super easy just to pick it up and like put it in your side pocket and throw it away. Same with like dog poop bags or stuff like that. So I also think this isn't even a hot take, but I think any creator, no matter their size, needs to be sharing about responsible recreation in like any type of content that you share, especially if it's outdoor. And then the larger creators that have a big following with a ton of eyes on them, like they especially need to be sharing more about it, and also posting things that are adhering to the leave no trace principles and not like a blatant ignorance of them. Like, for example, camping too close to a water source, or someone that's like running in a field of flowers. Like, that stuff is very obviously like not leave no trace. So that stuff shouldn't be going on social media, since a lot of people that don't know the principles might be following it, and that's not really what you want. So I'd say, as organically as you can, incorporating it into your content and also in the caption, so that people can, you know, continue to learn and educate themselves as you're posting, but then not coming off in a way that's like, this is like, I'm right, you're wrong. It should never be shameful. I think like it should always be encourage people to come into the conversation and do things in a way that they're going to see you doing it as a good example of what to do, but not putting people down if they don't yet know what to do or what not to do.
That was well said. I think it's definitely still a problem. I clearly remember when we first started out and we were going to like Iceland, for example, or some big destination that's very heavily photographed. And we would get to a spot that we were like so excited to go and get this dream photo of ours. And then we get there and we realize someone hopped a fence for it. Or like,
I had the same experience in Iceland.
They cut the trail or something. I clearly remember, I think it was at Godafoss, like that. There was like this one like walkout,
like
standing on the rock.
Yes, and I was like, damn, like that sucks. And I am such a rule follower. Like, I physically get like ill if I break the rules. Like, I cannot. He is a little different, not when it comes to like leave no trace stuff, but like he's definitely more of like a pusher, and I'm like, absolutely not, no freaking way. And the more you grow, like, the more it is so important to like not influence other people to do that. And yeah, I just get bummed when I go to places and see people blatantly just didn't care and still posted it anyways. It's like, you have a responsibility. I feel like that's the thing, the Peter Parker quote, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's the same thing with your influence. Like,
I think that's so true. Like, I think I was just scrolling this morning and there was someone that set up a tent directly under this beautiful waterfall spot in New Zealand, and was like doing all this, and all the comments were like, I can't believe that you post this. Why would you camp there? And they were like, we just did it for the video. And I was like,
that's worse,
okay,
almost.
If you just did it for the video and then you moved your tent, like, fine. But do you think the 4 million people that saw your video are going to go to the comments and say, for reference, we put this here, we didn't actually camp here? Like, no, the people, we talk about this all the time when we get all the same exact questions. And I'm like, if they read the caption, they would see all the locations. Or when it's pinned, like, this location is in Yosemite, and people comment, where is this? I'm like, are you like it? You have to expect, like, the common sense is just not there. So I totally agree with what you were saying. Like, you almost, like, if you're in a sense of you're a creator, you're trying to grow and you're putting it out there, you have to find a way to like protect all the different areas that you're going to. We always say, like, if it's available for infrastructure, like if it's somewhere like Yosemite, or if you go and it's
if
like,
it has funding, if it has bathrooms and it has like legit trails and upkeep, then we don't mind sharing it. But if it doesn't have like, if it doesn't have parking or like restrooms or things like that, we try and avoid like blasting a specific location, and just rather telling people who are actually interested in the DMs, or like sending them to a blog or something where we go in depth on how to like make sure it's a good area. That's at least our system for like the gray area of, you know, do you geotag or gatekeep? Because that seems to work for us actually pretty well.
Do you have any rules that you like to follow?
Yeah, I would say pretty similar to that. I think if it's like a hidden gem location, I just wouldn't post it. Like, it's supposed to be a hidden gem for a reason, kind of thing. So I don't like sharing that kind of thing. And like, if it's a trail that, you know, is already super popular in Colorado, then I don't really have a problem sharing that. Like, if it's on the first page of all trails, like, people are probably going to find it.
That's a good rule.
So I might as well share it with leave no trace principles, rather than someone that's just going to share it like just the location and that's it. So yeah, I think it really depends on like, I think infrastructure is a good way to think about like, should I share or not?
Yeah, we always thought it was very interesting because we only did stuff in California and mostly like the West Coast or the Southwest. And that was where we started to get all the hate. But then we would go to other countries and we'd tag like a hike or something. And all the locals be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. Like
it's very different abroad.
It's so interesting to see what people like abroad, and even some country, like there's definitely some countries that very similar to the US, like you're
like
ruining
Norway,
this place and stuff. And then there's other places though that don't really care. So it's always very interesting to me if it's like the culture or if it's like the amount of people or tourism, or maybe people have lived there and they've seen it change the past 5 or 10 years. I feel like if they've watched that change, obviously they're going to be louder compared to people that haven't seen the massive tourism things. But it's so interesting once you get out of the US, how dramatically it changes.
That's so true. Yeah. And I think in Colorado and probably in California too, since they're such big transplant states, like that's where you get a lot of the like, oh, I'm a Colorado native. Oh, it's changed so much. Oh, go back to like where you're from, especially because I'm from California and a lot of people from California have moved here and they hate us.
Yeah.
It's like anywhere in Oregon, Washington, or Colorado, avoid saying you're from California because otherwise they're just going to get mad at you. When we worked with, I clearly remember we worked with Visit Bend like a couple years ago, and we were on a shuttle to go mountain biking, and there were like these older couples in front of us, and they were just shit talking Californians the whole time. We were just sitting there like, nice. And then right after we got off of that, like there was another guy like shit talking influencers, and we were like, nice. Like,
yeah. And then they were
we
like,
feel welcomed.
They were like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, we're actually working with like Visit Bend, and they brought us out here to like highlight. And they were like, oh, we hate you people. Enough people already come here. Like the tourism board's spending too much money to make it popular for the businesses. And I was like, geez,
I was like, take it up with them, man. Like, not my problem.
It was crazy.
That is not fun.
When did you start now that you've been a content creator for a while, why did you pick like the outdoor niche out of all the other things that you could do? What's like your favorite part about being an outdoor creator?
Yeah, since I've always been outdoorsy, I think it was just a great fit. It was always stuff that I have enjoyed posting even on like personal accounts. So it kind of just flowed organically that I wanted to do something something outdoorsy in the content creation space. I think my favorite part is being able to continue doing the stuff that I love, but then also getting paid for it, in that it's a job now, which is crazy. And like, I don't think I'll ever get over that, or like will ever, like discount that, because it's such a special thing. And then also being able to like share those things with friends and family, like taking them on trips, or like being able to like host them somewhere, or pay for something, or give them like PR or stuff that I get sent. Like being able to share the benefits that I get as a content creator with people that I care about. And then also just being my own boss and like setting my own hours and rates and having flexibility. Like that's all on me, which is nice. And also sometimes maybe not as good.
The entrepreneurial struggle.
That's like my own issue with boundaries.
I feel that.
I think anyone can relate to that. That's like an aspiring content creator. It's something you would not trade for the world, and it's so rewarding to be able to like give back to your friends and family. Like we were able to like bring my mom on this crazy trip to Dubai for her 60th birthday because we were working with a bougie hotel out there, and that was just like the coolest experience. But like the actual behind the scenes that a lot of people never see, there's so much work that goes into it. My mom didn't understand what we did until she came on that trip with us. She was like, I understand now. Like, it's a real job.
I know. We just hired another one of Giselle's friends to help us out with stuff. And she was like, oh my gosh, like the amount of things that happen. So how did you balance like the
learning curve, I guess?
Yeah, like the learning curve, the work-life balance. Are you not workaholics, but I feel like in the beginning we did work a lot because we were like, we want to try and be able to get paid to travel. Like this is our dream. We see people doing it. We're going to put in the grunt work now so that we can reach that goal. How did you manage that whole like work-life balance bit?
And as a little tag on to that question, like when did you start monetizing your page? Because I'm curious in that part of your journey as well.
Yeah, so I think in some ways, I think I got really lucky with really quick growth early on, in that I was able to monetize a lot quicker also. But I think When I started, I was posting a lot. I was posting every day, and then I limited it to 5 days a week. And then now I'm only posting 3 days a week, which is a lot better for me, like with my schedule, with my part-time job also. And then just having free time to do stuff that isn't tied to having to film for a brand or something that I need to post on social media. So having those boundaries have been really good for me. I think, let's see, I started monetizing like just under 1,000 followers, I think. My first collaboration was with a tourism board in Colorado, actually, but it was for literally under $100, which I can't believe I even did that.
Everyone starts somewhere.
But it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't like I was traveling there to do it. It was something that was like along the way that fit into the itinerary that I could do the stuff that I wanted to. So it did feel pretty organic still, but just thinking back, I'm like, wow, that was really the first thing that I took on for like nothing.
Hey, at least you got paid
But,
for it, right? Like when we were,
yeah, it was a good experience.
when we first started, it was like a couple exchange ones, and then we started charging. But no, that's cool. And right now you have 59,000 followers on Instagram. And how many do you have on TikTok?
Like 37, 38.
Well, I think that's super cool because I think a lot of people think you need to have like hundreds of thousands of followers in order to make a good income from it. And even like you saying you started getting paid with less than 1,000 followers. Like I think, yeah, we started monetizing around 2,000 followers. So it's definitely possible. I think a lot of people just put this limiting belief in their head that they need like this massive number. But I think you do have to work a lot harder when you're smaller to do what we're doing.
What did you think? You said that you grew pretty fast in the beginning, which gave you like a leg up. What do you think led to you being able to stand out among all of the other female outdoor hikers trying to be like Angela Liggs or Renee Roaming? Like, what do you think was helped you really stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, I think it was because I was posting a lot of really niched content in Colorado. So a lot of like weekend itineraries like Steamboat Springs, Telluride, Rocky Mountain National Park, all of these really specific things coming out of COVID where people were also looking for all these stuff to do now. We're like, oh, I have this time, things are opening, like where can I go in Colorado? And like me having fresh eyes on all of these things, kind of, I was thinking of it like if I was going to be someone looking for this stuff, like what would I want to look for and what would I want to do? And that's just something that like I would naturally plan into an itinerary anyways. So just the combination of that, I think people were looking for that content and I was creating it at a time where people were wanting to do all this stuff. And then with a combination, I think, of the Colorado hiking girls, like people wanting to do those in-person activities and like actually meet people, and then like launching some group trips, all of that kind of combined, I think led to growth.
I totally agree though. We always tell everyone it like I was just helping someone earlier on the Creator Passport DMs. They're like, it's hard. I want to share like outdoor stuff, but then I also want to share like how to be an entrepreneur, and I also want to share like how my outfits, and I want to do a get ready with me, and like I post I have a day for everything. On Mondays I do outdoor stuff. On Tuesdays I talk about business, and I was like, what are you doing? Like it's so much easier, I think, when it's exactly what you did. You niched down super, super hard to where you were providing so much value for there's a huge market, obviously, like you said, of people coming out of COVID to do it. I think you hit it perfectly. That's amazing.
And obviously with growing, there's mostly positive, but there are a little handful of negatives, and that's including trolls and hate comments. And I know that's a big topic of discussion, especially amongst female creators. And so I was wondering do you deal with those? How do you cope with those? Because it is pretty prevalent, I feel like, more so on solo female pages, like versus a couples page, for example. So we don't get it as much, but I know that's something that people always ask about.
Yeah, thankfully I don't get trolls that often. But when I do, it's probably something along the lines of like a Colorado native saying that they want me to go back to California or
That's
something
not
like that.
bad. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like, I don't really like take it to heart that much. I just think of it as like, if they have something mean to say, like that's their issue that they have to get over. So like, I'm just going to block them. Although it is hard to not want to write a response back because it's so satisfying. But yeah, I tend to just block them and just move on.
That's block and delete, baby. That's my motto, because I take everything personally. Steven doesn't, but I'm not allowed to look at the comments for extended period of time. I'm allowed to look at them the first 24 hours. And then if a post goes viral, I'm not allowed to look at it. That's it's company policy. I cannot do it because I want to fight back. But yeah, I know it's better not to. And honestly, same thing goes over on Threads, where there's so many different hot takes on everything. And that's actually how I connected with you about getting on the podcast. But you're super active over there. So, and we haven't filmed our episode on Threads yet, but I'm just curious, what draws you to Threads, what you like and dislike about the platform. Do you think it's worth being on Threads? Because every time I open the app, it low-key stresses me out.
Yeah, I love Threads. I see it as just a super chill platform where I don't have to second guess anything. It's kind of a catch-all of whatever I want to post. So whether it's photos from a recent hike, or me asking a question to content creators, or giving a tip, or I don't know, just random stuff. I kind of see it as if I have a random thought I want to share, just post on Threads. There's no strategy or scheduling or anything that I really have to think about when I hit post on there. So in that sense, it's just really freeing that I don't really care about what I post on there, which is probably why people like Threads also, because they also consume content from people that don't care what they think about stuff either. Yeah. So I think, if creators do want to be on Threads, I think it's a good idea for people, for your audience to get a different side of you that they don't see on your other platforms, I think. But I don't think it's a super necessary thing. Although I am interested to see how Threads will expand in the creator space of I know they've been doing Threads events, and they started some bonus program on Threads. So I want to see where that goes, and I'm waiting for them to invite me.
I will thread more if there's bonuses, man. But
every time I hop on, it seems like it's the same dozen or 2 dozen people that I see all just tagging Mosery and saying, why is this? I have 90,000 followers. My video only hit 1,000 views. And then I'm like, oh, well, let's actually go look at this. And I click through and I'm like, bro, I can tell you exactly why it only got 1,000 views.
But no, I think that's probably why I have mixed feelings about the platform, because on the one hand, I open and everyone's just complaining about everything.
Yeah.
I think my algorithm is just broken over there. I want it to be like my TikTok algorithm. It's not there yet. There's no dog videos. There's no all the other funny stuff. It's just content creator stuff. But on the other hand, I do love the transparency amongst peers there. I think the conversations being had between content creators about pay and rates and certain brand red flag tactics that people are doing, or just helping each other. I think there's a good camaraderie because we don't have coworkers. It's kind of talking with our coworkers about the stuff that's usually quote unquote taboo, which is, that's the whole point. One of the biggest points of this podcast in general was to show a little behind the scenes of the curtain that goes into doing a social media business. So I think that's one thing that I do like Threads for, is seeing everyone have very open and honest conversations about that kind of stuff, which I feel like you do pretty often as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good space for sharing that kind of stuff, especially for people that may not have found their creator friends that they can ask individually about those things too. But I think there's a fine line between shaming someone or shaming a brand and constantly complaining about it, where it's okay, but you're still getting paid to post content on social media. So how much can you really complain about it unless the brand is really taking advantage of you? That's something different. But you also don't necessarily need to post every single email that you get for some gifted collaboration of something random.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. And I think people need to be careful. If you're a creator and you're doing that and you're listening, brands are taking notice if you are going on and bashing other brands.
Yeah,
or
one of our friends runs a brand, and he reaches out and he's like, yeah, all I do is I go on Threads and I scroll a little bit, and I have a do not reach out to list of all the creators just bashing people on Threads. So I thought it was very interesting.
Also, yeah, you might be breaking a clause in your contract if you're actually naming a brand.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's something too. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that there's confidentiality clauses, that there's non-disparagement clauses where you can't go in and badmouth a brand if you've signed it. But I mean, I didn't, to be fair, like when we were first starting out content creation and we were reading our contracts, I didn't know what a lot of the legal jargon meant. So now that we're 4 years into doing this? Yeah, 4 years doing this. And now we know like the red flags in the contracts, but like maybe those people don't do that. And now we have a legal team, which definitely helps. Yeah, that's honestly one of the, I think when you're coming up as a creator, accounting, legal, taxes, like all of my least favorite things on the admin side, that was always a struggle.
I mean, that could be why people go to Threads too. Is I always say that because we're a couples account, anytime something does happen, if I'm like, oh, the algorithm today, or oh, this happened, or oh, this creator did this, I can't believe it, I can just talk to G. And in the end, it's like, okay, cool. She's like my quote unquote coworker. But a lot of the people that are saying it and going crazy, like, oh, they could be living in a van and they have no one to talk to. So they're going to go on Threads and post something crazy. Or it could be someone else that isn't from a different country and feels like it's only things that apply. Like I feel like there's a lot of Europeans too that they don't have a lot of the features that the US has, or the US doesn't have features that Australia has. And I always see all these different things pop up. Do you feel like you miss that about when you become a solo creator? Do you feel like you still have that type of community to talk to, or do you have those go-to creators that you DM all the time and say, oh, this is happening?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I met some Colorado creators pretty early on when I was starting my journey, and we've kind of grown together. So I definitely have some people that I will like always reach out to about, oh, did you get invited to this campaign? Or like, what sort of budget are we working with this brand? Stuff like that, which is really helpful to bounce stuff back and forth. But I do agree that like Threads, if you don't have that community yet, like there's all these people that want to share information that might be helpful. So like if they are willing to, like you might as well ask and see what you get. But just make sure it's like a give and take and you're not always just asking for stuff but not willing to like give anyone else anything.
That's good advice.
Yeah, very, very true. So I'm very curious, when we first started, we had like obviously our 3 inspirations. Are there 3 people that when you first started that you like looked up to and you're like, oh, I want to be like, these are like my favorite creators ever? Or
now if they're different, because I know for me, like our inspirational accounts are different now than like when we first started.
That's a good question. I feel like when I started, I mean, and now still, like you guys were still one of the, or are still one of the inspirations, just like in the outdoor travel space. Like on the business side, but also I feel like you do a really good job at like showing your personalities and like the behind the scenes and the stuff that people want to see, to know that like you're actually real people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which a lot of people might not be doing, which I think more creators need to be doing more of. I also followed Asa Steiner.
Oh yeah.
Pretty early on. And her stuff is just so cool. I binged so much of her stuff before like my first trip to Iceland, and that was a lot of fun. Renee Roaming, I feel like, is an obvious one. I love her content. I feel like she's very real and like genuine. And I feel like I could know what she's like as a real person and not just a travel creator. So maybe we'll stick with those for now. I'm not sure if there's others I can think of.
I think that's cool that you've mentioned like realness and authenticity and stuff, because we've talked about this a lot in terms of like growing your page and growing your brand. How can you stand out? And I think a lot of people get really involved in chasing trends only. And I think it's definitely like trending audios and all of the trends and stuff. Like, I think it's still important to do that kind of stuff. But I think where a lot of people could really exponentially grow their business is by starting to show a little bit more of their personalities. And like with Renee, for example, like I could tell you so much about her that's not even related to travel, because she's so good at that. Like how hardcore of a Swiftie she is, and like all about her husband and where they live in Seattle, and like all this extra stuff, and her take on like having kids. I wouldn't know that if she wasn't like super genuine and open about that kind of stuff. If you're only posting like generic trends on social media, nobody's gonna know you on that level, which is honestly, it's kind of like a scary thing. Steven and I, when we first started, I didn't want a lot of people knowing like more than surface level information, because it kind of scared me. Like the internet can be a scary place, especially when you have like your other job and you don't want people to judge you. And that was always my problem when we were first starting out. I'm like, oh, I don't want people to judge me. But I've slowly gotten over that over time of like, I'm not for everyone, and people can judge me for whatever. But I just think it's cool, like watching people slowly get more comfortable with sharing more about themselves online. And like we've really started to lean more into like the personality bits of like, oh, I'm the type A travel nerd who loves researching and getting to the airport early and all that like silly airport stereotypes, but that is honestly like a true part of my personality. And like Steven being a golden retriever and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a good piece of advice for people trying to stand out nowadays, is to really just lean into that authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you can get to a point where it's like too much following trends that like now none of your content is original anymore. And it just looks like everyone else's, and like you can't even tell that you're the one that made that.
That's the problem. I look at Steven, and sometimes if we're like analyzing our own posts, I'm like, oh, why did that one not do well? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, it's because anyone could have made this post. It's not just us. Like anyone could have pulled, like, let's say Colorado footage and made a Colorado hiking itinerary. I feel like it's not like how it used to be when it comes to providing value on the internet. Like before when we first started back in 2020, like people weren't really giving itineraries or value. It was just like pretty pictures with the half empty caption. Now everyone's giving value. So you have to figure out how to stand out away from, I mean, I think still educational content's important.
Yeah,
and
we
like
always say you need to have like 4. If every single post, all you're doing is giving like tip, and no one else, you're not known for anything else, like you're gonna fall into the crowd. Like we always say all the time, you could look at 10 other accounts and be like, oh, their posts look the exact same as the Lover's Passport. They do the exact same hooks, everything the same, but you can't copy like a personality, or you can't cut like
like someone's voiceover style or like storytelling.
You need to, we always say there's educational, inspirational, relatable, and entertaining. Like if you're only doing one of those, you're never going to see success. If you're doing a little mix of everything, that's where you really start to see your account take off. And it's just a lot more fun when you feel like all you can do is tips. It's so restrictive, you know? You don't get to share anything about yourself.
Very true. Yeah. I like the point that you made about voiceovers. I was going to talk about that too, because I think that's such a good and like fairly easy way to like put your own spin on something and like tell the story of the reel without having to write everything in the caption. But then it also challenges you to like make it under 30 seconds, for example, or like, how can I say this stuff without it taking me forever to get to the point, and like actually make it engaging, like add a hook and then add stuff in the caption. And then people can like learn about what your voice sounds like. So when they scroll somewhere else and then they come upon you again, it's like, oh, I think I've like heard her before. So I think that's a good way to like make your stuff stand out too.
And I think you do a great job with that. I definitely still hate doing voiceovers, but we're getting there. We're slowly getting there. I did a Cricut ad with my voiceover the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, I usually force Steven to.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw that. It was good.
I force Steven to do all of them because I don't like the sound of my own voice. But you know what? It's fine. We're getting there. We're working on it. Anyways, you want to close out with our favorite question?
Yeah. Oh, so I feel like we need to add another question. I've been thinking about this one. Are there any other 3 people that you would love to hear them on the podcast, or you think they'd be a great guest that you would recommend?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I don't know if you guys follow Hiking with Jesse, but he's an outdoor creator that, like, you probably know his story, but he asked for a sabbatical at his job. They said no, so he quit. And he's been traveling Southeast Asia for a few months now. And I think his story would be super cool to share on the podcast. And I've just had so much fun.
He went diving or like free diving in the Philippines and stuff. And then, okay, good. Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, and then he went to like Taiwan, and he's in Vietnam now.
All right, perfect. We'll reach out.
So I think he'd be a really cool guest, and I would love to hear more of his story.
Cool. And then I always like to say, what is the most exciting thing you've ever done? This was my first question to G when we first started dating. So I love seeing what it tells us a little bit about your personality.
Yeah, I think, I know you guys have done this, but the volcano in Guatemala that you can hike up.
That was crazy.
That hike was crazy. And then we also did the one to Fuego where you can hike
you
like
kept
the erupting
going.
one to get closer. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so hard.
Dude.
Hardest hike of my life. And I was battling like period cramps on that hike as well.
That's brutal.
So it was just like not a fun time.
Oh my God.
But just the whole experience was so cool. Like seeing the lava flying off of that volcano from so close up. And like we had great conditions, no clouds. but it was freezing up there. But I think that one.
That's amazing. No, that's cool that you kept on going. We were there during the middle of a thunderstorm. Classic Lover's Passport weather. Yeah.
Hey, but it opened up for a few hours in the middle of the night. We got our like bucket list shot.
But like looking
epic.
back on it, I feel like we could have gotten much better photos, but we had like 2 opportunities and that was it because it was so stormy the entire time. And then like sunrise, we had good weather, but like the night shots and like the sunset was like completely gone. So, but that hike was brutal. I don't know if I want to go do that again.
Oh, I would totally do it again. That was fun. That was a goodie.
Now I have like a mental preparation. Like if for those of you listening that haven't done Acatenango in Guatemala, like it is a booty kicker. Even if you're an experienced hiker, like it's just straight up.
Yeah, would love to go back.
So much incline. Yeah. Our knees and legs were so sore.
Yeah, I basically like ran down too because it's so steep. It's hard to like just walk down it and I have knee problems. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I am like jogging this way down. But it was definitely, it's a bucket list hike, I think.
Yeah.
Like a top, 10 hike.
Yeah. Well, where can the listeners find you if they're like, man, Julia sounds incredible. I want to be a part of her Colorado group. I want to go follow her. What can they do?
Yeah, I am Julia Takes a Hike on Instagram and TikTok. And then you can find my hiking group, the Colorado Hiking Girls, on my bio for either of those. But we're also on the app Geneva. So I think if we're able to link this in the show notes, or you can just find it in my profile, you can join us there. We do a lot of fun events. So I'd love to have some of the listeners join the group too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on, Julia. It was a pleasure to have you as a guest. Maybe we'll hit you up when we're out in Colorado and G can go on one of your fun Colorado girls hikings. But if you guys were listening, don't forget the best way to show us some love is give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you're listening. If you guys really enjoyed this episode, go and send Julia a DM. Let her know what your favorite part about it was and connect with her. She has an amazing page both on Instagram and TikTok, like she was saying. And with that, we will see you next Friday with another episode of Unfiltered Adventures.